Mikael Zoghbi came to INSEAD in 1989, having worked as a banker, and then joined Visa, where he created a new pricing model for Europe and the Middle East. In 2002, he was hired by Heidrick and Stuggles to run their Middle East practice, and 3 years later set up his own firm. Welcome to Alumni Experience, Michael. You became a headhunter in your early 40s. Why did you decide to make that switch?
The genesis of a career move is both influenced by push and pull factors. And I found myself in a situation where one of my colleagues became my boss. And on my first day in that new environment, he told me some extremely unpleasant truths. And I made the mistake of fighting him, which was a 2-year struggle. In that time, I then looked very actively for something else to do, and was approached by a headhunting firm, Heidrick and Stuggles, and thought actually that made a lot of sense to me because it played to the Middle East side of my career, and that I spent a lot of time working on the Middle East, and it was a culture I found interesting.
Lots of people are kind of ignorant about what actually goes on in executive search. What do you do all day?
There are three or four critical phases to a search. So the first bit is understanding the job properly, which involves at one level getting the brief from the client, but then secondly going to talk to people who are doing that job already, not as candidates, but just to get a better understanding of what the job involves. Then there's the putting together the shortlist. So that is speaking to and interviewing people and working out what's going on with them. Are they likely to fit? Are they likely to, do they have the appetite for such a move? And then coming to some understanding of the pros and cons around each candidate, because actually no one is perfect for the job. The third part then is preparing the shortlisted candidates for interview. And I always try and spend some time, make sure the candidates don't talk too long when answering questions. Because in an interview, a lot of interviewers aren't very well prepared. So they have their 10 questions. And if you spend too long answering those 10 questions, you never get to the conversation, which you need to have at the end, which is about where you start asking questions and you start understanding what the problems of the client is facing, and then you're building those early bonds of trust. And then at the very end, one of the parts I like most is that the successful candidate has to give me 4 or 5 referees who he selects or she selects, and then I will talk to them about why that person is very good at what they do, and I prepare a short report for the client.
Where are the opportunities now in the Middle East?
Well, I think what's fascinating about the Middle East is that it's the world capital of capital. And so huge amounts of money are flooding in. I mean, Saudi Arabia generates $1 billion every 3 days from its oil sales. Abu Dhabi, $1 billion a week. Kuwait, about the same. So huge amounts of cash roll into the Middle East. Half the population of the Middle East is under 16. So there is a huge expansion in everything to do with serving the populace, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's FMCG, whether it's hospitals, whether it's services like the airlines. Everything's there to be built. And so it's a very exciting part of the world. It's the one that I've chosen to work in. Increasingly, customer-facing roles in the Middle East are going to be filled by people who speak Arabic, because the customers on the other side are going to be Arabs. But a lot of the operational roles and risk roles in financial services, for example, still very open to expatriates. The premium for moving to the Middle East is much less now than it used to be. 30 years ago, you could go to the Middle East, get paid 3 or 4 times your salary in London or New York. Today, you get to keep your tax. So that translates into a 30-40% net cash increase, but the clients aren't paying more in salary terms.
Lots of career advice at the moment focuses on networking, and headhunters are supposed to be fantastic networkers. So what are your tips? What are your tricks for building a great network?
I think one of the things that has impressed me when people are trying to network with me is they come with a piece of information that could be relevant. So if you're trying to network with someone who you don't know particularly well, but who could be useful to you, think about what is of interest to them at the time. Have you heard that? This job is coming up. This person has just quit. This industry is going through a shake-up. This is likely to be happening in the next 6 months. And busy people, intermediaries, whether they're investment bankers or headhunters or brokers of any kind, are in the information flow. And so by nature, we're very interested in information because we always know someone who might be interested as well. People who come with something interesting, then, okay. So he's thought about what my issues are. And that's a kind of a customer focus approach that we all could do better at.
Finally, let's talk about career advice. How do you advise people who come to you wanting to make a change?
The first thing is, don't bother going to headhunters to make a career change, because we're only looking for people who are already doing what they're doing. Second thing is CVs are used for rejection. You spend hours writing it, but you have no idea into what environment it's going to be presented. And I think the third piece is, before taking on any job, work out your exit. How is this job going to add to your collection of skills, experience, people? Because jobs today last 3 to 4 years. And there's a trajectory issue. Who gets to run $1 billion company? Someone who's running a $500 million company. So if your ambition is to run $1 billion company, you've got to manage trajectory as well as the content of the role.